Are you ready?
Yes.
Hey guys.
Hi, Ren.
Good to see you both. So Dario is just joining us for the first part of this so we can finish up the looking at scholar work thing that we weren't able to get to finish up in our last check-in.
Yep.
I'll start with our normal connect question. So for today, I'm thinking, what are you most excited about for the month of December?
You want to start?
Sure.
Well, we're doing some interesting stuff. We're planning, Cody and I are planning a little bit of a state of the union with the students after they come back from Christmas break. So we're doing some of the heavy lifting and planning of it before we head off for the break. So we're involving our grade level chairs and planning grade level assemblies to share some academic discipline SEL data when we get the panorama data with each grade level and engaging with some goal setting around. When you come back, almost use it as a reset, some sort of in a way. But really getting the kids to see, like, here are the things that we're doing really well. Here are things that we've struggled with in semester one. Here are some interventions we put in place after Thanksgiving break. How are we responding to it? Kind of just giving them some justification around why some systems exist, and giving them some clarity around that, but also just energize them to have a really strong start for semester two.
Cool.
Maybe do some goal setting around, everybody's engaged in some sort of assessment. So what is my academic goal? What is my social emotional goal? What is my behavioral goal? Kids having some issues with behavior. So
Cool. I would love for you guys to, I'm always about you guys sharing stuff of like what happens when you did it, and like the preparation and then the results from it. If there's anything you can record, if you record, I think it'd be good to share with your peers. I think you guys should be really proud of yourselves because I know when Heights did their reset, one of the things they used with their staff was Your Faces activity. I know that was really impactful for their team to like really identify that relationships as a lever to kind of help build and shape culture. So I would love for you guys to share that with folks. So that's exciting. That's cool.
That's actually connected sort of to what we did last January as well. We did Faces last January because we got the panorama survey data back.
Yeah.
And you and I and Dario, we've been talking for years about, does our staff actually know our kids? And so our panorama survey hopefully will be back by January again.
Yeah.
And so doing the celebration at the end of the semester, starting January off with the State of the Union and having the panorama survey and doing the goal setting then, I just think makes a lot of sense. Kind of continues our cadence in what we started last school year.
Cool. So what are you excited about?
So while they're doing kid stuff, adult stuff, so I told you, right, goal setting conversations, I actually enjoyed them a lot because I get to face with every single person in the building that's impacting kids. So for middle of years, I've got my crazy tracker up there. I'm going to be sitting in on every single middle of year conversation with the deans. They're going to be running it, sort of like they did with their goal setting conversations. But it still gives me insight into what are teachers working towards, and then I can have a face-to-face with each teacher. So I'm looking forward to having all of those done in the next 2.5 weeks.
Cool. Well, you always get energized by goal setting, middle of the year conversations. I think it's great to have a FaceTime. I'm curious to hear. I'll wait till January. I think I'll see how Cody and Dario experienced the middle of the year conversations with their fun folks. So.
Did you ever sit in on some with me?
Yeah.
You did, right? Last year? Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear about it. Cool. Well, let's jump ahead and let's do the look in the scholar work because I know we're going to have Dario for a little bit. So Dario, we'll kind of fill you in. So last time you weren't here, we got started. There was a little bit of chaos that took place, and so we didn't finish. I think we only got a chance to look at the low samples. And if we can go through the medium high, and I'm going to switch back to that agenda. I will take the notes.
Okay.
And then we'll go through the couple quick questions and talk about next steps. Because you coach Lori, right, Dario?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So
Here's Joelle. I'll give you Andrew, and I've got Patsy.
So as we look through them, as you read them, let's look at, be able to answer the questions. What do you see? And from what the scholar's perspective, what do they think they're working on?
Okay.
These are medium?
These are medium. You guys want some Post-it notes? Okay.
Ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
What'd you see?
So in mine, I saw that the thing that held the student back from moving from a middle to a high is they weren't fully answering the prompt. The prompt was, how did the Transcontinental Railroad lead to the U.S. becoming a world power? And she spoke specifically about what the Transcontinental Railroad allowed people to do, without actually just wrapping it up and saying, so these are the things that impacted U.S. economy to build, people to connect across the country, things like that, to make it a world power. Commerce.
So she
mentioned, like, instead of wasting gas, you can get to places faster, you could see more family. Business grew, but that's all. It was very superficial, and looking at the rubric, the response indicates an understanding of the demands of the question, but these demands are only partially addressed, which I think makes complete sense as to why it was scored this way.
Yeah. I mean, similarly in this one, that seems to be the trend too, is just very surface level.
Yeah.
I mean, while the factual information, the historical content is accurate, it just, the kid grazed over it, it didn't really go into a lot of depth. But I think one thing that kept this kid from reaching the high level, he went against the argument. Like, the argument was that he mixed his argument. He started off explaining how the Transcontinental Railroad made the world power, but then gave a lot of evidence of why it was detrimental to the U.S. And I think, like, as a DP class, like, this would have been great to see of him challenging that notion. Like, if he just started off and his opening statement was like, well, I disagree, or I actually think this was a detriment, and then he fleshed out his argument, I think it would have scored higher even if it was against the prompt.
Does he flip-flop on the prompt?
Yeah.
So he says sometimes that it helps the world, and or helps the impact?
Yeah. And really, his argument against is much stronger than his argument for.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
So I wonder what kind of feedback he could get to say, have that freedom to
do that.
Yeah.
Do you have feedback written?
Yeah.
From the teacher?
Mm-hmm. And she mentions that, like, she highlights that he says the weaknesses should focus on the things that kept them from becoming a world power. So she was identifying for him that, like, hey, when you did this, when you said this, it's actually arguing against the.
Yeah. That's interesting, though, the dynamic of, like, answering the prompt and following apes, and then being a writer. Yeah. Right?
I think that's interesting, because you do see on her feedback on here, it's like good use of apes in some places, and then, like, tells kids you need to use a sentence to connect this to the prompt. So, like, to your point about does not fully answer or connect to prompt, I think this was interesting as well. There was definitely no counter argument in this one. But definitely just that same vague language about this is what happened, these were the benefits, and not necessarily how it would make the U.S. a world power.
Okay.
Let's take a look at, were there any highs?
Yeah.
Okay. But I do think that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
As a question, I'm just going to put it down as a question, like, to follow up with about, like, how do we teach kids to, when they have a different opinion, like, how do we, like, build that muscle, because we want that, and not get penalized.
So, and it's doable according to this rubric. So the rubric says the responses contain, this is for a 13 through 15 score, which is the highest mark. The response contains clear and coherent critical analysis. There's evaluation of different perspectives, and this evaluation is integrated effectively into the answer.
Okay.
All or nearly all of the main points are substantiated, and the response argues to a consistent conclusion.
Yeah, I think the question would be to her is like, how would you support that scholar in building in that kind of argument?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me find some that are easier to read. Here's one.
What'd you see?
It's interesting because if this was an AP essay, they would have perfect scores. But it's not, and it requires them to do a little bit more analysis.
Tell me more.
Okay, so there's so much opportunity missed that I'm seeing in these highs. For instance, I read two of them. So Desi's paper, he talks about, you can just tell the writing is a little bit more sophisticated. His thesis is incredibly clear, that the first transcontinental railroad played a significant role in the development of the United States as a world power in the late 1800s because it increased traveling options, which increased the economy, as well as business opportunities such as market and trade expansion. Okay? Then he goes in and he literally just talks about traveling, 30% increase in or making of goods, and trade and job opportunity, and just writes the same sentence over and over again for two body paragraphs in different ways, and then ends with the thesis.
What was her feedback?
And her feedback was, make sure you explicitly refer to the prompt within each paragraph. I don't think that's the feedback.
I think that's interesting because I feel like that's a pattern. It's a constant. If this one and the one we saw before was like go back to the prompt, go back to the prompt. It seems like her feedback is more stylistic and meeting the checking the box.
Yes.
And not so much about content unless the content is wrong.
Yep. This was given,
Yeah.
what, 3 weeks before Thanksgiving break? 2 weeks before
Two-
Thanksgiving
weeks.
break?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar here. It's a decently written essay, but it's very much a summary
Right.
of facts, right?
Mhm.
Like, so I shook my head when you said this would be a great AP essay. It is. It's just a regurgitation of historical fact.
Yeah.
And she even like, she has the same feedback. Make sure to refer back to the prompt, but like here she was very explicit. Like this is more of a summary of notes rather than a response to the prompt. So
Oh,
she got a little
okay.
more specific
Okay.
in her feedback there.
And that's what AP wants.
And that's what
Right.
AP wants.
Okay.
She did DBQs, didn't she? Like fake DBQs when she was teaching 9th grade, I remember.
Yep.
So she's familiar with the AP style.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she did the AP. I mean, AP, whatever, art history.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it's just,
The feedback, okay, I'm gonna read you the feedback she wrote here. I just don't think this would take this essay to the next, to make it a compelling argument. One more body paragraph would have been ideal. Finish each paragraph with a statement that links it back to the prompt. Good. Indirect link to the prompt. Good. Next time, make sure you explicitly refer to the prompt within each paragraph.
Yeah.
That's it.
And same here. I think I have the same thing. This kid is definitely seems like a unique writer. 'Cause I think he like came out of the bag a little bit. I mean, I hear the same factual information from you guys, and she did like interesting way to begin your response. Well done. Like it
What is he write?
goes. The transcontinental railroad supplied 30% of the world's goods, meaning around something goods. I don't know if that's right. Meaning around 1/3 of the world relied on the railroad. Not only this, but increasing the standard of living, making everything cheaper, removing the friction of trade, and allowing the country to maximize value in trade. This allowed an increase in exchange of ideas, cities, markets, and expanding in more distribution, which helped in making the United States a world power. Right. I mean, and he does get to this. He goes. That's his whole paper, and he starts talking about the how. He does do that same thing with the counter argument that the medium kid did that you had. He does the very same thing. I think he just does it a little bit better.
Yeah, but look, my kid got an 88. And Desi's was not as, like, it was literally the same point, written in different ways.
Yeah.
For one paragraph, 2 paragraphs. He got an 87. What's the point discrepancy? That's
So-
interesting too, you know?
So let's talk about it. So why don't you guys think about the quality of writing? How are you feeling about this? Like in terms of first quarter and a half of DP. These are juniors?
These are juniors.
From low, medium, high. I don't even see the lows, but medium, high. What are you thinking about the quality?
I'm encouraged. I think there's a great deal of potential to like really polish it.
Yeah. And just think back to Bradley last school year. This is what we were seeing from Alyssa's 12th grade class last school year.
Okay.
So our 11th graders in their first semester, even the lows, I mean the lows
Yeah.
are better than they've ever been. But that follows our data, right? We do a pretty good job of closing that Q1 gap. It's the Q4-5, so like focusing on these higher ones, figuring out what is that critical feedback that's going to take their paper from an essay to a compelling argument.
Yeah. So let's, you kind
Dive
of
into
answer
that?
the next question. What's the next steps for the teacher do? I think to do just that. Like I think,
What coaching conversations have you had with her thus far?
So I think one thing that I can push her on is more of the modeling of how to write an analytical essay versus an AP style regurgitation essay.
Okay. Like doing her think aloud writing for them? Okay.
Or even
Does she
just
do
having
think
like
alouds?
peer feedback for each other. Like, this is And when I say I'm encouraged to see that the kids are able to present facts in a way that it flows and it can be read and it's like, okay, this is, on any given day I can score this pretty highly, right?
Yeah.
I just know what's expected of, like, where are the content connections, like, kids made connections to, like, how this is detrimental to the environment, right? Like, while you're in an ESS class,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you learning in ESS that you can tie to this?
Sure.
Or, like, drawing some, so I guess I'm thinking, like, bigger picture too, like, what does the collaboration look like with TOK and the teachers?
Yeah.
Right, like, are they sharing the prompts, I'd be curious to know if Lori shared the prompt with Tiki,
Right.
you know, like,
Yeah.
I know they have that time, but, like, how intentional are they around it?
I think, I have a couple of thoughts. So one, I mean, that's a big one, right? Like if they can just, even if, let's say Lori's forte is just giving the stylistic feedback, Tiki's might be different.
Yeah.
And if we can figure out that they're different, it's okay, because they would be complementing each other as long as they were doing the same prompt and kids were getting some exposure to both. Because they also need the stylistic feedback. The other thought I had was Deborah is at writer's workshop. Do Deborah and Lori ever connect? Do they like each other? Do they talk to each other?
Yeah, we need to get along.
Yeah.
I don't know how often they
I would
sit down to.
sit with Deborah first, figure out how she would move a student, see if it makes sense, works with Lori, bring them together.
Yeah.
Because if they do a writer's workshop, the kids will then be in groups. It would be like peer feedback, but it would be more intentional.
Yeah. And I don't think it would take a lot. And honestly, it's just getting the kids to understand, like, okay, you have factual knowledge from both spheres, like
Yeah.
the historical, you might have
Yeah.
the scientific
Yeah.
knowledge or economic or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, how do you
Bring it
just
all together.
how do
Yeah.
you articulate it in writing in a succinct way that it makes your argument that much stronger?
Even if you could do Dario, I wonder, I'm having like quick thoughts right now, but I wonder if Lori doesn't like to do the sage on the stage stuff, right? Stage stuff like the full think aloud. But what if they broke their room into 3 writers' workshop spaces based on high, medium, and low, like medium work with low or whatever. Deborah is kind of the expert in figuring out who, but Lori pulls a small group here and actually does the think aloud. And so if she did 1 week of it, she could get every group.
Yeah.
You know, just a thought.
So I think we got 2 things, because I want to be cognizant of Dario's time. I think you've got a Lori bucket, things you want to do with Lori, and so I just want to make sure we capture those. Modeling of essay writing, just as a strategy she should start doing, right? And I think you gave him a way to consider. 2, something I did not say, I wrote it down here so I wouldn't forget, was just like having Lori, what's the exemplar essay? Did she actually do one and have one?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I would do, Daria, and I know you guys like sit and look at work, like if she didn't do one for this one, I think for the next essay, I think I would have her to do one and start there before she even sees any of the kids' work. And because I think that we need to help her shape her feedback so that it gets them to write in that way. I think that would be the way. I think her feedback is for points and not for growing them as writers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Did Liz Sutton drop off writing samples?
Mhm.
She did,
Well,
right? Or like that
the
CD?
CDs, yeah.
Okay. Can I take your,
No.
you can have all of them.
And then peer feedback. So I think you've got like a couple of things you have in your toolbox for her. I think the other part is what do you do with all the DP teachers so that kids are able to make the connections so they can have deeper analysis. I think you've got to figure out what that looks like, and I think Lori is a good person to get that started. I mean, I just feel like she always was like, oh, whenever you want to do my work. you know, or I'm saying,
But she could design it, right?
Yeah.
Like she's really an architect when it comes to things
So
like that.
I think like what I would do, I mean, you would have to, we need conference with her, determine how you guys want to do that, and like setting up the time and meeting to do that.
Honestly, Dee, so I have up here Q3 professional development that when we do our semester close, we'll think through what those need to be. But based on our second strategic priority of writing, we could take we could take the DP cohort and do something very specific with them, just with DP teachers, and see how it works.
And time's already there, so.
Yeah.
So when are you guys gonna do that?
After middle of years, probably during one of those half days is when we're gonna sit down and think through exactly what the MYP DP split in regards to ATL writing and scholar perseverance.
Okay. So you guys, you're adding this to the planning of those meetings?
This is like part 2,
Okay.
but writing I think should be the focus for DP because they're starting their extended essays now.
Okay.
They finished their like pre-planning.
All right, so Dario, this is your to-do task. You've got our suggested recommendations for moves with teachers, and then this thing with teachers, this thing with the DP teachers.
Just the.
My ask is what us for all the teams is just making sure after you have this meeting with, you and Samina figure out how you have that meeting with Lori. I just ask that you respond to all of us, the whole leadership team. This is what Lori and I met with. Blah blah blah, and our next steps. Cool. Do you know when you'll do that by?
Sure. That's good. I mean, I'm in mid-years all week.
I'm sure.
Probably by the 14th for sure.
I just asked for an email,
Yeah.
and then we'll follow up. Probably not until January at this point. So, in person, see how it's going. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Dario.
Anything.
Can you meet from Samina or I?
No.
Great. Yeah. Let me out of
I'm just
here.
gonna leave.
Gotta go catch the seniors before they
Okay. Thank you, Dario.
leave for lunch. Thanks, Ron.
How do you feel about that?
Good. I love going through writing samples. And I think for Dario, because he was missing on the day that we started them, this is good for him because you can tell just by him talking that he's deeply invested in how to make DP work.
Yeah.
And he's deeply invested in our strategic priorities, which are rooted in DP or good IB.
Yeah.
So when he sees it in action, he feels more focused on what to go talk to them about as opposed to going and observing and then
How do you
finding
figure it
something.
out?
Yeah.
Good. What do you support you think he needs? Knowing Dario.
So what I would like,
Mm-hmm.
I would like for Dario to come to the table and say, here's what my DP teachers need, here's what I want the PD to look like for quarter 3 or for the second semester. The first thing they need to do, the second thing they need to do, the third thing. I don't know why he doesn't do that by himself right now. So what he needs from me is to sit down and say, okay, let's plan this out together. I want you to come thinking through like what's the evolution of what the DP teachers need and giving him my time to put the plan together.
I think you gotta plan it. I mean, I think you gotta just schedule the time to do it. Set up the meeting just to do that with him. Because once it's clear to him, he's going to do it.
Yeah. He will follow a plan to a T.
Correct. So you're gonna set that time with him?
Yeah, I have my one-on-one with him on Thursday,
Okay.
so we'll just start it then.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So let's talk about what you want to collab. Oh, do you have anything before we jump into your collaborations? I'm usually talk about any other random things you want to put on my radar.
Trying to think if there's anything big. Told you about the parent yesterday.
Yeah. She went away.
She went away.
Okay.
I have to go put eyes on that kid today.
Yes.
Just to make sure.
You do have to.
Goodness, there's got to be something. Oh, can I put some dates on your radar? December 19th is our holiday party. So I'm going to put in the Peak Post the RSVP link. I'll also just send you a calendar invite. Love if you could join us.
Okay.
And it's going to be a white elephant.
Wonderful. Okay.
Are you going to be here for College March?
I don't know. I haven't looked at your date and time.
Okay.
I have never been to a Heights College March.
Okay.
So I've prioritized them as the one that I have to be sure I attend.
Ours is 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. But that's fine.
Okay.
I've invited our board, our campus advisory council to come as well.
Okay.
And then this year we're gonna have primary cheerleaders also cheering on the students.
Oh, cool.
So that's gonna be fun too.
Yeah, I don't have your hold on. Yeah, I'll let you know for sure. I
Okay.
just haven't looked at it. I just know, let's see, height is at 10:15. What time is yours?
8:15.
Yeah, I should be able to be here, I think.
Middle of years for Jen Worthy and for Courtney Cohen. I saw in a CMO memo, and now I can't find it, that their middle of year window is not until January for urban teachers.
Okay.
So I'm not doing theirs. Did you hear anything contrary to
I
that?
haven't heard anything.
Okay,
Did you reach out to Sally?
I didn't. I just
Okay.
remember reading it and I wrote it down during this week, like weeks ago.
Okay.
And then I read it and I was like, oh, I don't have to do their
I don't
observations.
recall anything,
Okay.
but,
I'll see if I can find it. If I can't, I'm just
Don't worry about
nervous
it. I
I'm
can
gonna
just-
miss.
I can just email Sally. How about that? I'll
Okay.
take it for you.
Thank you, appreciate it. And then last thing. Right now we're focusing, and you read it in my CMO memo, my big post.
Like you do the memo?
The memo takes over my life. My memo.
Yeah.
First 10, last 10,
Yeah, yeah.
passes and duty stations.
Okay.
I made a joke this morning, not recognizing that I made the joke with my team when we had our morning huddle.
Team.
Leadership team.
Okay.
I was like, guys, Thanksgiving, like coming back from Thanksgiving, things feel good. And they're like, Selena, it's been one day. And I was like, wow, it's only been one day. It feels like we've been back for a week already. But I think it's because because I did the huddle before they left for Thanksgiving break, telling them no excuses. This is what has to happen,
Yeah.
teachers. And then seeing it happen is nice.
Good. Yeah, good. Keep it up. I mean, I think those are the things that, obviously, I sit at the front desk
Mhm.
when I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I had more time to, usually I have to tell people, hey, I'll take your time.
Mm-hmm.
The last couple of times I did not have to tell anyone I was taking their time, it was just open space.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that you guys noticed that it was getting a little looser.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to think it out, so. Cool.
Cool.
One thing that came up yesterday at my finance meeting was your Title II money. You have a fair amount of it available
Uh-huh.
still, and just wanted to tell you to spend it
Okay.
if you're going to use it for training, and for you to start thinking about what you're going to do with it.
Yes, I've thought about, I've got to send multiple teachers to DP training next school year.
Okay.
So that's one big cost. We're gonna go see schools hopefully next semester.
Yeah.
It's another big cost. And then Dario and Cody wants to do something restorative justice focus,
Okay.
and Dario wants to do something with the ACSD.
Oh,
Yeah.
ASCD.
ASCD,
Uh-huh.
again this school year.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember you went to the conference last year.
Right, and had like a fantastic
Correct.
time
Okay.
with Mrs. Biden. But yeah. So that's what I'm planning.
Okay.
You reminded me of an issue we had this morning with finance. So Manage Back is being bought by the district for all of our DP students. We bought it for the entire
Okay.
school for MYP as well, so we had to pay the bill. Jeff C sent me something that said, hey, like I need put this in and we'll get it paid for, but you're gonna have to send me the account code. So we did that a long time ago, like end of quarter one maybe. Dario took care of all of it. Something happened in finance world. I had my check-in with IT last month, told Jeff about it. He was like, I don't know, let me look into it, see what's happening. This morning, yesterday, Lakeisha Gross from Accounts Payable sent me a purchase order that needs to be completed. So Nora came in, office manager, went through everything, said, I don't understand why you're doing a purchase order, this should be a check request.
Sure.
So I said, handle it. She went back to the office, called Lakeisha. Lakeisha got confused. Then I went and looked at all my emails to see where this, and apparently a few months ago we did the exact same thing. Lakeisha said, finish this purchase order.
Okay.
And Dario, when I give Dario something, he finishes it, and he does it. So I don't exactly know what's happening or why it's happening. It's gonna get paid. We already paid a 2% late fee.
Okay.
It's not a huge deal. It could be something that's wrong on my end, but I don't understand.
Okay.
So
Oh,
Nora's
sure.
taking care of it now,
She's-
but it
she
took her
is.
like an hour
Okay,
this morning to figure out what's going on.
alright. If I can find out information about what's happening, I will.
My new finance friend
Yes,
is
that's
Victoria Mack. I
Okay,
have not reached out to her about
Okay.
being my finance friend yet. Like I've
Okay.
only talked to her about plan for learning stuff.
okay, alright, just curious.
Okay, cool.
I will not put this on my top of my
No,
priority
it's
list,
just
but
something to
it's
keep
something
you,
to keep in
yeah.
my mind if I get an audience with them. Okay? Alright, let's go to your collaboration time.
Okay, so through Principal Impact Collaborative, I got to go visit 2 high schools that I normally would not go pick to go visit on my own. I was sort of forced to go to these 2 high schools because Principal Impact Collaborative looks for high-functioning schools with a similar type of population to the students that we serve as a cohort. And there's very few high school people in the cohort, like maybe 6 people total, including myself. So there was only 2 high schools to pick from. So we went and saw, Chris, if you look on my board, you don't have to, but I can just read it to you. We went to Cristo Rey in Dallas, in Pleasant Grove, and we went to TAG at Townview. So one thing, I took Cody with me to Cristo Rey, and I took Dario with me to TAG, and I did that really purposefully.
Yeah.
One, Cody has, you remember when we were interviewing her, she was all about DISD and only DISD.
Yes.
And now she's opening her mind to like charter schools or public charter schools are also serving the same
That's like
kids, same
national.
neighborhoods, everything, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I wanted to show her a private school environment and like what you can learn from that instead of like shutting your brain down, show what you can learn from that. Honestly, I was going in with my own bias too of like, I want to go to this private school. DISD took Dario to TAG because I wanted him to see that similar populations of kids with given freedom, non-compliance type structure
Sure.
can thrive.
Okay.
It worked beautifully and
Good.
also broke down my own biases of both of these campuses. So what I did with my leadership team before Thanksgiving break is we went through kind of what we saw from each campus, and that's what's on board. So I'll read them to you. So
Yeah,
Cristo Rey.
I'm gonna just flip over here just for a minute,
Okay.
so I can read with you.
Yeah.
No, I can't hear.
Yeah. So with Cristo Rey, we saw that they had a non-punitive discipline system, and Cody is going to go back and do a full day visit to kind of observe this non-punitive discipline system in action. We tried to dive real deep into like, what do you actually do? And it sounded like what they do is talk therapy, but it requires their principal to just be with that student all day long, or their dean,
Whoever.
yeah, to be with that student all day long.
Okay.
So let's say, and you know they have a federal work study program, or corporate work study
Yeah.
program. So let's say student doesn't show up to work in the morning, or doesn't show up to school. And then when he shows up to school, says F you to the attendance counselor and then walks away. That student would have to sit with the adult and talk through, why did you do that? Well, why do you think you did that? Why do you think you did that? Why do you think you did that? Blah, blah, for like 8 straight hours.
For 8 hours?
Yes.
Okay.
A whole full day of talk therapy.
Okay.
And I said, like, how do you know this works? It's that the student never wants to go through this type of therapy again. Like, you know? I was like, is it secular talk therapy? Is it, you know, and they said sometimes it can be both.
Okay.
But most of the time it requires the student to have to do, like, they have to sit and talk to you. And if they won't talk, then you sit there and you just keep asking them the same questions until they want to just bang their head against the wall. Then their parent has to come in, and then the parent and the student have to have the talk.
Okay.
Then the parent and the student have to talk to each other while the administrator watches. So I don't know if, but they have very low suspension numbers. I then made like a sarcastic kind of comment. I was like, but you can just send kids out, right? Like you can just expel them. And she said, dismissal is a part of the Cristo Rey system. Pleasant Grove, our campus, has only dismissed 1 student ever.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, okay, so something must be working. Their student population is way more like ours than DISD, than TAG, DISD TAG.
Okay.
Their teachers have meetings once a week, every single teacher, and they do a similar system to what I'm doing with my interventionists and my grade level chairs and what Kirby's doing at his school. They have a small number of really important priorities, like they were talking about just 2 things. That's all, everybody knows the mantra, 2 things, that's all we care about. Teachers and students had a voice in the school. That's based on the interviews that teachers gave, the panel interviews from the teachers and students. And then student feedback. So students give feedback to their teachers, kind of like an end of course survey. Students give feedback to the administration. The administration gives feedback to the students and the teachers. Teachers give feedback to the students and the administration, so there's this like triangle loop.
Oh, feedback.
Pause on Christo Ray for a second. Tag. They had, what we noticed in classrooms is they had a high level of trust and engagement. Teachers for students and students for teachers. So the teacher would stop for a second, come and talk to this group of educators that were coming into their room for maybe like 15 minutes, and the students were still working. And then the students would literally just get up and go get what they needed and didn't feel as if they couldn't go do that, and they would get to work. It almost felt like a college environment. Like if somebody was moving around, you wouldn't stop them and say, where are you going, where are you coming from, all of that. There's small group collaboration happening in almost every classroom that we saw across discipline. The teacher was really the facilitator. Did not see any lecturing happening. That's not to say that that doesn't happen there, right? And then student maturity and focus. Why did we put that up there? When we had our student panel, students talked a lot about, like we had a 9th grader, a 10th grader, an 11th grader, and a 12th grader, and they talked a little bit about what it means to take responsibility for your own actions. And it was a key component that students kept talking about. Like my job as a student, what I'm supposed to do. They had done a very good job developing intentional culture.
Sure.
They do the exact same feedback loop that Christo Ray does. And it is a small, diverse school. Students had a lot of love for their teachers. They talked so much about how much they appreciate and love their teachers. So their population was way more diverse. They are at around, I showed you the number, I think it was something like 46%
Free and reduced?
free and reduced.
Okay.
No, I think they're at 70-something% free and reduced, but 46% economically disadvantaged.
Okay.
So they've got more, and as their school is growing to higher numbers of economically disadvantaged, their scores are also getting higher.
Okay.
So that was an interesting data
Sure.
point. So when I sat down with my deans and and Adisa was brought to this meeting as well, I said, okay, based on the things that we just outlined that we saw at these schools, what was something that these schools had in common that we can focus on, getting to this whole like small number of important priorities? What's the small important priority we're going to take on as a team to try to build this type of culture in our school with our teachers and our students? And there's two things. One, and this kind of goes again like with our Gallup survey. One, I feel administration listens to us. And two, I feel like I'm treated like a professional.
Okay.
Students and teachers were saying things like that.
Okay.
Now, we haven't seen our Gallup results yet,
Yeah.
but I'm going to venture that, or I'm going to guess that our teachers are not going to say I feel like professionals, or our students. And I'm going to venture to say that there's two camps of I feel like administration really listens to us, or I feel like administration never listens to us.
So like on Gallup, that would be with my opinions matter. I think that's my opinions, and then feel like I'm treated as a professional. I think that's tricky because I think there's one about I get to do what I do best. I don't know if the question was aligned, but okay. So
This is all I know thus far.
okay.
I want to do something with it, but I want to go in to my team.
Yeah.
With a very clear vision that they can help piece about the how. My goal when we sat down was to go through this and then design the vision together, but they weren't there. I don't know, what are, you know us.
Take a step back, right? So like,
Okay.
I'm gonna come back over to you.
Okay.
Look at your values.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit when we were piecing it all out.
So,
We
believe we can and will achieve a high academic and social standard.
And under ACT, the middle one in red, we have pride in our school and are all held accountable to our roles. I think those are the two that we zone in on.
Yeah. I think like, I love your values, right? And I feel like they have been sticky.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell me.
Yeah.
And so I would hate for you to like pivot and change language. And so I think my first thought is let's leverage your current campus values, and it's a good opportunity to take it up a notch. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about your team, meaning Adisa, Dario, and Cody.
Yeah, and we can include Deborah and Eric
Okay,
with that.
so let's talk about your leadership team
Okay.
and how you want to frame. Like, I think I would use those two.
Okay.
I don't know. But I think you need to frame your experience from the observations to walk people toward getting to those two things. Does that make sense? Like, what we learned, like you just outlined it for me. You'll probably give the skinny version
Mm-hmm.
of, hey, blah, blah, blah. It came out to people wanting to be, like, you can use this language of them. They can handle that.
Yep.
And then make the deliberate connection to the values. I think that would be my first step.
Okay. Okay.
I think my question for you is, what do you want them to do? You want them to like figure out how you're going to do this?
So, in my head, let's connect it to what we were doing this morning with Dario, right? In my head, I see this as if Dario sat down with the DP teachers and said, okay, we know that our kids have to write like this, develop this extended essay that's so interdisciplinary, which requires them to promote transfer between subjects. And currently, during our collaboration time, this is what it looks like. How do we change up our collaboration time so that we meet that aim for students?
That aim for students, okay.
Right? And then having teachers design that with Dario. Dario being like the carrying the flag for it. They feel like he's got their back through it. He feels like they have his back through it because they're in the design work with him. That, I think, gets us exactly to, we are all held accountable to our roles, and gets us exactly to a high academic standard and social standard. Now they're required to be accountable to one another.
You said it, actually, right? So like, I think there's probably something for each one of the people on your leadership team that you want them to do in terms of executing either the IB vision, your whole school vision, whatever you're working toward. Like, I think first you need to identify what's the end goal I want from each one of these team members. You want Dario to lead that charge.
Yep.
And you need to identify that for each one of them. Right? Because like we could do with Issa.
And Issa's really hard team, right? Like,
Yes. Well, unfortunately right now that's the case.
so Cody, let's say we wanted to keep it,
With those two?
well, no, even with the three of them, but
Oh.
like, I'm just thinking about if Dario's big thing, the one thing that he can lift that's in his job description currently, in terms of projects that he's managing, that's aligned to priorities and aligned to our values, is DP collaboration. Cody actually can do the exact same thing with MLP collaboration, right?
Yes.
So they're just with different people, but they're designing together.
Yeah.
So that's good. Elisa's probably going to require a little bit more of my time to design, co-design
Sure.
with our team.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that
what's
is.
That thing? That's what I'm saying. What is that thing? What you want from, let's just go big, right? Like what we want from her or that team is for them to make sure our kids are exposed to, have access to, and gain access to highly selected colleges and universities, or their best fit or match, whatever the language is, right? That's what we want from that team.
Mm-hmm. But that requires two different lifts. One is technical know-how. Excuse me. And the other is will and love.
Yes.
Like, I'm not saying they don't have it. What I am saying though is I think they've gotten so good, like Lori giving technical feedback, I think they've gotten really good at checking the boxes.
Sure.
This is how many applications students should be completing. This is the variety of applications they should have. I mean, that's what they're learning this right now, first quarter, second quarter. That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
As opposed to this switch of like, this is who Remy is. This is what Remy would benefit from. When this opportunity comes across my desk, it's not extra work. It's, oh my gosh, Remy would really benefit from being exposed to this.
What's first coming up for me is it's an opportunity for them to be bold and to take some risks, right? Like I think, because that's risky for them. That's bold to them to say, hey, normally I would recommend X for this kid. I'm being told to do something different from multiple parties. I'm going to try the approach that others are trying, that others are gaining, having much more success with on other campuses, whatever the narrative is.
I think it would also be motivational for them because the thought of like, I am an underdog and I'm going to prove something can resonate with them.
Yeah. I think for them it's more about a number.
Yeah. Well, like I can tie it to the metric, right?
Yeah, I think it's probably more numeric in terms of how to be bold to reach this goal. Maybe arriving.
Make that noise again?
No. You know what I mean? Like I think that's different. I mean, you're right. Hers is probably tougher for us to wrap our arms around in such a small time.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm going to recommend. I think you need to draw on your board. Can you erase it in the middle?
I think so.
No, don't do it then. I think you need to
I can do it down here.
we need a little bit of a chart.
Okay.
Do like Dario, Cody. Dario, Cody, Avisa. I'm going to do a chart with these two columns going to the right. And the first column is going to be like, what's their big project? Like, what's their big lift? DP.
Okay. Let's do it with these two first because
Okay.
it's so clear.
So that's the first column, is like the challenge or a task, whatever it is. Now let's put it through the lens of your two statements. We have pride in our school, like the first column, you're going to have to make this small. We have pride in our school and are all held accountable to our roles. So think of one who's accountable. And then the other one.
Okay.
We believe we can achieve. So I think you now have to think about Dario, like as you do this exercise with them, I think you need some guiding questions. How are we going to hold, like identify what the task is, like you'll have to put that in words. How are we going to hold people accountable, using that language to meeting like that expectation or helping us meet this goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like I want him to also think about, as I
Yes.
want all of them to,
Yes.
like what's your accountability piece, what's the teacher accountability piece, and when we're talking about the grade level assemblies, the student accountability piece, what's that goal that you want them to do that the teachers are putting in work into?
Correct.
Okay.
And then we believe we can all achieve a high academic and social standard.
So that's where the goal setting comes in, right?
Say more.
So let's say it is, we're doubling down on interdisciplinary prompts.
Correct.
Okay, let's say teachers sit. So we're doubling down on interdisciplinary prompts. The leader action is that Dario is going to design the time that the teachers come together, find them lunch that day. I'm
Whatever
making
it
some
is.
things up
Yes.
right now. And run copies for the thing that they
Whatever it
produce.
is. Sure.
The teachers are going to come prepared with writing samples. They're going to come prepared with their next unit, and they're going to find common
Correct.
themes. The students, this could be like their writing goal, like the students, I don't know yet,
Okay.
pause. To believe, then what the leader will have to do is Daria's gonna commit to going and seeing it.
Sure.
Teachers are gonna commit to going, grading together and collaborating together.
Go ahead, take it.
Hey Burke. How are you? Good. Are you calling me back from yesterday? I am so sorry that I bothered you, and I realized that I should have probably called Brandon. I took care of it. It was a weird situation. I had a parent that had come to school with a belt, and with a belt, and insisted on spanking her child at school. But I told her absolutely not, and I sent her home. But she told me, I called CPS, and CPS said, it's okay, I'm allowed to do that. And I was like, so CPS is telling you what the rules on spanking are. You will not spank your child on this property. Cool, I just wanted to double check that that was the appropriate response, but I took care of it. Right. She called them, she was ready to call them in front of us because the lady gave her a phone number to call back so that she could verify that CPS said that she could spank her kid on campus. Okay. Right. Right. Right, yeah. Weird, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we can take care of that for sure. Everything's wonderful. How about you?
Alex, we gotta go.
Good. Good, yes, I did. I'm actually in my check-in with Remy right now. Can I talk to you later? Thanks so much for calling me back. Bye. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Where were we? You were
Okay,
on to
so with
something and I don't
believe.
remember. Mhm.
So if the leader action was, so the believe action, right, that we will achieve this high academic and social standard, Dario might say, I'm gonna commit to coming in, or Dario might say, I'm gonna commit to bringing this back together. Teachers, you're gonna come back together and do some grade, norming on feedback. Dario can say, I'll sit down with Samina and the leadership team and we'll also audit some feedback to see if we find any levers that you're not pulling.
Sure.
And then the student piece of that could be progress monitoring on the goal they made with the accountability piece.
Fine.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that's for both of them.
Yes.
For this last one, I think we might need to actually just set up a meeting time just to think through this one because
Yeah.
it's a different challenge than instructional
Correct.
curricula.
Let's start with DB NYP.
Okay.
Let's stay there. I feel like that's tangible. I think what you're gonna have to do though is figure out what the guiding questions are to get them to define those actions. Or I would do something like maybe I think maybe it's just the three of you meet.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And like maybe you
Like as an academic program meeting?
Yeah, and maybe you guys, you kind of talk about, I've done one, like do the DP one, like a sample one, and then the three of you think about what NYP could look like with coding. Does that make sense? Specifics.
Honestly, I think, yes. I think that if I meet with him first,
Okay,
we'll be able to guide her properly.
okay,
Because him and I know
Sure.
DPNYP.
sure.
she's still learning.
Mhm.
So if we did, the two of us, we figured out, I could start this in our check-in on Thursday, learn something from the process, guide him to, like, how can we get to this goal and this goal, but specifically this goal based on what we read,
Mhm.
and tie him to those priorities, get him to do the thinking, see if he comes out with this type of thinking,
Okay.
or what he comes up with might be better than what we came up with right now.
Sure.
And then call a meeting and say, Dario and I met about this, how are we going to mirror this process, how are the two of you going to
Work
sync?
together. Good.
Let me take a picture of this and then erase it,
Sure.
because I want to design it with us. Yeah, they're in here a lot. Thanks, Remy.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I think it's exciting. So I think what you're going to have to remember, and this is how you make them the champions. Like, I think this is connected to like something we've picked up about your team. You always do all the work and communicating the big picture and things like that. It's getting them to articulate when they define like what these different steps they're going to take. Connecting it back to the values, getting them to say it.
Yeah.
So that they are also the champions of values. You know what I'm trying to say? So the staff sees them as like, it's not just Samina. And I don't know that I'm making an assumption, but I just want them to just develop their voice and kind of own the lane.
Like if they, because
Yes.
they have to do the thinking
Correct,
themselves,
have
they
to-
can get
yes.
to the what, the why.
Yes,
and
I
how.
was like, huh? Yes,
Yeah.
perfect. Good. Well,
Great.
that's exciting. And you're going to start with Dario.
I'm gonna start with
You're
Dario.
gonna check in on Thursday.
It just makes a lot of sense considering we just went through his writing sample, and I
Yeah.
think what I need to do now is get Cody to pull her writing samples,
Okay,
and we do the same thing.
cool. Cool. Do you have anything else?
Nope.
We can wrap for today.
Mm-hmm.
Just bring the peak agenda again, so I don't get lost. So I'm just gonna wrap on. So Dario had some action steps about meeting with Lori, getting back to us on December 14th in terms of how he wrapped that up. And then your action steps are.
To start the process with Dario,
Yeah,
and then bring Cody and Dario together and do the academic programming PD calendar with them owning each lane
okay,
for quarter 3.
okay. Let me just get this down. Start process with Dario. And then for me, I'm gonna email Sally and our urban teachers, ask about, I'm gonna do that as soon as we finish here, about, look at you forgot.
No,
Oh, the middle
urban
of years.
teachers, middle of
Yes.
years. Yes.
And then.
I'm just thinking like I can do that myself.
It's
You don't
really
have to
okay.
do that.
That's fine.
Okay.
And then the manage back question, I mean, if it comes up, if I'm able to.
I think we're
Just-
gonna handle it today,
Yeah.
and it'll be taken care of.
I'd
and
just
paid
like to
for.
hear the resolution. I'm not sure if any other campus is doing it, but I just wanna know what happened.
Yeah.
Okay. Feedback. 2 things Remy should keep doing and stop doing.
Okay, so from today, so thanks for, I had lots of ideas with the school visit.
I'm used to these.
Yeah. But I think focusing it on like compounding impact and the work I already did with my values. I remember whenever me and my leadership team, when we did this and broke it all down, we had talked about values and tied it, but at that time it didn't stick in my head, like that's the avenue. So I appreciate you kind of just being a clear lens for me and shining light on compound the impact with the work that I'm already doing. I also appreciated the agenda and giving me the opportunity to help design it. Like co-design it with you, so that we can make sure that strategically our roadmap is being followed, but also specific shifts that I want to make on campus.
Yeah.
We can spend some time and energy on.
What should I stop doing?
I have a request.
Okay.
So once we get our data back,
Yeah.
I know I can see kind of like where Williams fell and where Peak fell, or where all the other schools fell.
Okay.
But whenever there's specific things that we're focusing on for one of our months, one of our check-ins, would you mind bringing like the school that's right above us and the reach data, so that we can I can zone in on, instead of just pulling up the dashboard and say, okay, like I need to reach out to Mauricio and figure out what's happening.
Okay. The reach school.
The reach school.
Okay.
That's really all I have.
Okay. Things you should keep doing. I love it when you're positive, and I am trying to, study, I study people, creep style. No, I'm just kidding. Like you don't know, like even when you're in negative space, and we all have our days. Like I don't want fictitious or you to be inauthentic, but you don't know how jazzed you are when you're positive, and it could be about like the smallest thing, or small to me, but probably big to you. So like I noticed that when you finish like a mid-year, you're like getting in classroom, or you like you all did something with the PD, or like even if you finish your peak post, you are jazzed. And I think that I think people build off that energy, and so I think like know that when you're in a positive space, people are more than likely positive with you, and I just think I think the energy just puts you in a very productive space and keeps you in your zone. Two, when I checked in with Adisa, you're doing a good job on staying on top of her. I felt really good about the conclusion she had come to, and I realized it felt like I was having a conversation with you, in terms of like her finally owning, the team is at where she wants it to be. It seemed like it took her a while to get there, but I feel like she gets it now. Like
that's good.
And I was like, and she said it without prompt. Secondly, just like her, in terms of like not having that ACT data and things like that, that clearly impacted her. Because in our last check-in, you notice I didn't sweat it. I just, we had already talked about it. But like, while we were in there, Gowdy actually came in there to talk about like, I've got the reflections you want, blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
And so like, it definitely like has put her into a more active space. And she's committed to doing the things you ask. I think she's still very transactional in her leadership, and so I think we've got to still work on that. But I just think that talking to her, it felt like I was having some similar conversations.
Yeah.
I feel like your feedback it's taking root.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
So
yeah. Did you see that she sent you a report?
I did. I don't really know what to do with that.
I know.
But it's okay because I will talk to Rich about this is what it looks like and information that we probably need from campus.
Cool.
I think things you should stop doing. I don't have to stop doing. I think the time we spent here was actually the thing that we know we have to get better at, is getting your deans to like own their space. And I think this is a good step in that direction. So I think any energy you can continue to put into getting them to own it, I think keep doing that. Does that make sense? Like, and I think like, and I saw it a little bit here with you and Dario, because you're an idea generator. I don't know if he knows how to deal with idea generate, like he hears it all, but I don't know if he can like pause.
He can't process it in the moment.
Yeah, so I think I saw it today. I think I would just say, here, okay, you gave the post-it, I think that was a good move. These are things I want you to do. But I think you probably have to like discipline yourself to narrow it to one or two. You know what I mean? When you're in that ideation space.
I think he should learn how to work with me, but no, I'm just kidding. No, I get it.
Yeah, I think that he'll be, at the end of the day, I know you will feel successful when you say, I've been thinking about X, Y, Z, and I really would like for you to take that charge on and just do it. And I think we're still working toward that. I think how to get him closer is so he can understand how your brain thinks. I don't think he knows how you think. I do.
Yeah.
But I don't think he...
This morning, it was, before you got here, we were in our morning huddle. There was this moment that I loved, Cody was sitting right there, Dario was sitting right here. We were talking about end of year awards ceremony and the State of the Union. And they were talking, I was doing my work, I was letting them have their collaboration time. And they were like, what do you think, Samina? And I was like, walk me through what you're thinking. And so Cody kind of walked through it, and then she said, so what would you prefer? Would you prefer this or this? Are you okay with us postponing this? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, my hope is that students feel celebrated and understand what their next lift is, and then we come back and they get a clear pathway for what that lift looks like. So you guys make it happen any way you want that to happen, but that's what I want. And so then I walked out when you got here, you know, I took care of finance stuff, did some other things, and when I came back, part of the stuff that I erased and put on the board, they had planned out exactly when everything was going to take place and how they were going to do it. And that was a nice moment because I felt like I didn't have to do any of the real thinking. I just told them what I wanted.
And it's okay.
Yeah, and it was good.
Yes.
It was a really good moment. I didn't have to put any mental energy towards it.
I think you just keep doing that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was a win this morning.
And I'm just glad you feel comfortable doing that, because I feel like if we were around 6 months, you wouldn't have had that comfort.
Yeah, because I didn't trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Great.
Awesome.
Thanks, Samina. Thanks for letting me go over a little bit on time.
No problem.
I apologize.
No problem. Let me turn this off.
Okay.